It's kind of crazy in the video game collecting hobby that we have almost completely distinct pockets of people, like completely different camps of mindset as to what game collecting is or how it's right or wrong if you collect games in certain ways. Obviously, with video game collecting, with video games themselves, the inherent use of a video game is to play the video game. I don't disagree with that notion at all, and it's awesome that video games as a collectible have this added benefit that you could go play the game if you want to. And there are a lot of people in this hobby who simply buy games that they want to play and they collect those games. Now, whether or not those people who buy explicitly to play are collectors or if they're just gamers who have amassed a collection because, well, you bought a lot of games and you never sold them, so by default, you now have a video game collection, I suppose you are a collector. I don't really like to put labels on different people, different collectors, all that stuff. I think that's completely lame. So if you are engaging in this hobby, purchasing physical vintage video games, which, let's be honest, none of us need to actually buy, but if you are someone doing that, then you are part of this hobby. And I do have to give a nod here to Retro Bird, as he's kind of what brought me onto this topic in the first place. He has a great video talking about being a shelf collector. And prior to seeing his video, I didn't even know that was a term that existed within the community. Shelf collector, someone who buys video games but doesn't play them and mostly carries negative connotation with it. As far as I understood it, you don't want to be a shelf collector. That's a no-no in the retro video game world. And of course, that does lean more into the retro gamer side of things, where, like I said, people buy games explicitly just to play them. How dare you own some games that you aren't playing because there's some gamer out there who would love to play it. And even if it's not people like that trying to shame people for how they do or don't use their games, you'll also have people who are more in the collecting subset of people who will also be, the only way I can really describe it is willfully ignorant about people who collect things but don't actually use them. The sentence or the statement always begins with something like, I just don't understand why someone would want to buy these games and not use them. And obviously that goes even further when people see sealed or graded video games and they just absolutely lose their minds, like, oh my god, you bought a video game and you're not going to play it? Like, they cannot understand that. Or at least, like I said, they want to act ignorant towards it. They want to keep up the argument. A lot of these people just don't want to accept that other people do things differently than how they do it. And that really sucks, because at the end of the day, whether you purchase a game, play it once, and then stick it on your shelf for eternity, or if you buy it, don't play it, and stick it on your shelf for eternity, it's not that different. I always wonder why people like that even have game collections. If you're buying every game for the purpose of playing it, or you're only buying stuff that you're gonna play, after you play the game, why don't you just sell it? If the argument is based around not using the games that you purchase, why even have a room full of 50, 100 games? Let's be honest, once you pass a certain mark of video games, call it 100, 200, 500, whatever benchmark you want to use, there are some games in collections of that size that will never be used again. So if the main goal or the main argument revolves around playing the games, once you've played the game, why don't you just sell it to someone else who can go and play it? A lot of people talk about sealed games, graded games again, where, oh my god, you have one, you're reducing the supply of those games. That is a game taken out of circulation that someone else could enjoy. And when people say that, out of circulation, the game is now out of circulation because it's a graded game, now no one can play it. It's like, we are all collecting video games. Any game that I own, that you own, that anyone owns, is by definition a -1 to the total supply. That game is out of circulation until it gets sold. So anyone holding a collection is bad for game collecting. Those are games that are out of circulation. Whether they're sealed, graded, being played, not being played, that game is not in circulation. That game is not able to be enjoyed by someone else. So when people project these negative perceptions of like, oh, you're a shelf collector, you're not using your games, I don't understand it, that's a bad thing, I always wonder if some of those people almost feel guilty about how much money they're spending on vintage video games. Maybe they feel a bit of guilt about buying them in the first place, so by playing them at least once, they justify the expenditure of spending, I don't know, maybe you bought a $250 Earthbound cartridge. Maybe if you play that game once on original hardware, that justifies the $250 purchase, as if you can't play Earthbound via any other means at this point. And in the same way people say they can't understand why someone would buy something and not use it, I also can't understand why someone would purchase something like an Earthbound cartridge for the expressed purpose of playing it. Now, obviously, I'm being facetious. I can understand that there is an intrinsic value in taking the cartridge, putting it in the console, playing on original hardware, CRT set up in front of you. I get that that is an experience in itself. But if we are going down that path of willful ignorance, anyone spending money on an Earthbound cartridge just to play it, it is arguably wasting even more money than someone who buys it who just enjoys owning it. Someone who collects for the sake of collecting might be the better audience at this point to purchase something like that. Which does bring me to the big point of the video here, where we exist in these camps where people think video games have to be played. How many times have you heard people say games are meant to be played, right? As God himself intended, you better play those damn games. But the joy of collecting video games for myself and others is from the act of video game collecting in itself. Coin collectors aren't going to spend the coins they buy. Stamp collectors aren't licking all their stamps. Most people who buy Pokemon cards have no idea that there's even text on the cards. Collecting in itself is the purpose, is the goal, is the fun. Obviously, it's nice that you could also play the video games, but the idea that you have to always be utilizing the stuff that you enjoy owning or enjoy collecting, in my opinion, is a closed-minded approach to what collecting is in itself. Collecting is a very personal journey, and for such a personal thing, the act of collecting anything, it's funny how segmented all of the communities are, where people want to try and shame people for doing it a certain way. People want to push some kind of like superiority complex, some like morally righteous way of collecting. It's just super weird and honestly disappointing to see when all of us are these weirdos who are purchasing items we don't need when other alternatives exist. We're putting these things on our shelves. We have deep appreciation for this media, and it honestly just sucks to see how divided everything is. Now, obviously, resellers, prices, grading games, the Carl Jobst video, there's a ton of things that added a lot of animosity amongst the entire hobby. I do understand that, I do get that, but it seems like everybody now just wants to take a paintbrush and make these massive broad strokes. It's like if you go online, any other person that's out searching for games, oh, they must be a reseller. Like, I'm the only real collector in the thrift shop. Everyone else is just a dirty reseller. Or if someone has graded games, it's like, oh my god, you're a dirty investor. Like, I saw the Carl video and man, anyone with graded games, you're an awful person. And I don't know if this just stems from general anger, jealousy. Like I said, maybe some people spending a lot of money on games feel guilt about it, so they want to try and like justify their actions, try to like tell everybody, no, I buy my games because I play them, so it's totally worth the thousands and thousands of dollars that I've put into all this. I don't know what it is, but having been on YouTube now for like 2.5 years, being on Reddit for 2 years, just participating more in general collecting communities, it is crazy how many people care how other people are collecting. Like, it's insane to me. Now, I don't have some profound message to leave you guys with at the end of this rant, but if there's anything to take away from this, it's just to have a more open mind about how other people collect. Try to understand how other people engage with video games as a medium. Not everyone's going to be great at playing games. Not everyone is going to play games daily. Not everyone is going to play the games that they collect, but most people in this hobby, if you are actually in the video game collector hobby, there's going to be some deep connection to the media that all of us can probably connect with each and every other person in this hobby to some level. The easiest way I can describe it is live and let live. We're all just trying to get some video games. We're all just trying to enjoy this hobby. Life is way too big to worry about how someone else is using or not using their video games. Say thank you to every single patron who helps support the channel, as well as the YouTube members. I can't do this without you guys. Hit the like button before you go, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.